Hello everyone and welcome back to another Rainbow Six lore video. The brand new map Lair, which is Deimos' base, is now available on the test server for Operation Deep Freeze, and there is a lot of voice recordings on this map, giving us a lot more depth about Deimos, his organization Kaze. There's one where we get to hear Harry on his final day before Deimos confronts him. We get to learn more about Fenrir, specifically after he left and destroyed his research, and some biochemical weapons which Deimos' men have been affected with. There's a lot to get into here. Nighthaven Labs only had one voice recording as far as I'm aware. This one has at least 3 that we can find right now. There may even be more. So if you do go on to enjoy this video, be sure to drop it a like, consider subscribing for more R6 lore, and let's get into this. So this first voice recording can be found in the master office site on the 2nd floor. This is Deimos' office, and in one of the open drawers, we can find Harry's voice recorder, which we've seen him use before in different cinematics. Even all the way back in the Hammer and Scalpel cinematic, where he was interviewing Dokkaebi, this is Harry's recorder. So just think about how much information is on this. Deimos definitely learned a lot about our operators from stealing this, and specifically what we hear on this is Harry's final day. I'm gonna let this entire recording play out and then we're gonna come back and talk about it.
1:40 a.m. With last year's funding cuts, we cannot operate at the level we need. I've stated my case again and again, but my concern falls on deaf ears. I can only hope that what wakes them up isn't a great tragedy. 2:22 a.m. Filed a declassification request for files related to early Rainbow missions. They're routinely redacted, but it's the only way I can connect the dots. To find out who Deimos really is. Putting a name to a face may not stop him, but when you know the why, you can begin to find the weaknesses. 4:04 a.m. Just doesn't make sense. There's only one clear candidate, but now I need to go back over my notes, over the files, because it doesn't add up. It's not possible that 8:29 a.m. Searching for the real identity of this Deimos. A piece of evidence will point one direction, but another suggests the opposite. Whoever he is a master of subterfuge. And he's been hiding for a long, long time. 12:43 p.m. Deimos has all the hallmarks of being a former Rainbow operative. Like everyone here, he is a force to be reckoned with. But when freed of the bounds of morality and protocol, he becomes much more dangerous. Which is why I'm not as confident as usual that if he comes after us, we'll be able to hold our own. 1:22 p.m. Rainbow has been in somewhat of a crisis recently. I sense instability amongst the operators, infighting. I try to be as strong a leader as I can, but I lead with the mind, and sometimes I wonder if that will always be enough. 3:33 p.m. The captains have all been so focused on Nighthaven recently that I worry it's led the unit as a whole to be too single-minded. Intelligence has been warning of something much bigger on the horizon. We can't afford to miss it. 8:19 p.m. Every good leader knows authority must be passed on eventually. I've done what I can. Changed the culture for the better. But it cannot always be me. There are many who could quite ably fill my shoes. 10:01 p.m. To do this job well, you have to give everything over to it. I'm coming to terms with the fact that other areas of my life have been greatly neglected. One day I hope to make it up to her. Hello?
So, one absolutely insane recording. The timeline of events seems to be going throughout a 24-hour period. It doesn't seem like Harry got any sleep over this 24-hour period since he was up investigating Deimos. And this eventually leads up into when Deimos enters his house, and you all know how that story ends. But yeah, a lot of stuff we can take from this. For starters, we learned that Rainbow had budget cuts, and Harry was worried that it was going to take a big event for them to sort of get that budget back, and clearly it did. It took him, Ash is in a coma, coma, many of our operators were injured, and Deimos is a threat. And we don't know if Rainbow actually got that budget back yet. This could tie in with that random mysterious guy we've seen on the board being linked to Harry. Could he be the person who's sort of above him, monitoring Rainbow, you know, doing these budget cuts and everything? Who is this man, and is he linked to this? We learned at 2:22 a.m. Harry put in a declassification request for old early Rainbow missions in an attempt to sort of put the dots together to discover Deimos' identity. Moving on to 4 a.m, he seemingly has came to a decision of who it could possibly be, but Harry doesn't want to believe that, so he isn't settled on it, but it seems like he was on the right path at least and had a potential candidate. We don't learn who that candidate was, but it was definitely someone important because it really took Harry back and forced him to go over his notes once again. And it sort of cuts out in the end because he's like, it's not possible that, and then it cuts off, implying that he said the name of Deimos, and Deimos has clearly cut this out when he got the recorder, so it doesn't leak out. So we were very close to hearing a name there. Still in the morning at 8:29 a.m, Harry claims that there is a lot of conflicting evidence. One piece points towards one person, and then another piece points to someone else. Now, roughly around midday at 12:43 p.m, Harry confirms that Deimos does have the characteristics of a former operative, implying the worry he has about an operator being that skilled as the operators he trains, being able to act without moral, and he even says he's not confident that they could stand against this. At 1:22 p.m, he talks about crisis and instability amongst the operators, and he wonders if the way that he leads them is enough. At 3:33 p.m, he talks about how these squad leaders are a bit too focused on Nighthaven, and he feels like something bigger is brewing in the background. Roughly around 8:19 p.m, he talks about on how he's going to have to pass on authority one day, implying that he's tried to change the culture for the better, and that this position will not always be him forever. At 10 p.m, he talks about how much time it takes to do this role and do this job, and he's been neglecting some other stuff in his life, primarily his relationship with his wife, and he says he hopes to make it up to her one day. But unfortunately, we know he would never get that chance. And the final bit we hear of Harry is very ominous. It's actually quite scary, and it's at an unknown time of the night, simply him calling out hello after he hears someone enter his property, and we all know who that is. And so that was the audio recordings by Harry on his final day, and he was investigating Deimos, and it seems like Deimos knew this. Maybe after Harry pulled up the old files and asked for declassification, Deimos might have been aware that he's done this, and that is how he knew that Harry was getting into his identity, and it's the perfect time to strike, whilst the other operators are focused on the stolen Nighthaven gear, which was bait. Now, if we move down a floor to the medical room, we actually have an audio recording by the on-site doctor at Deimos' lair. Again, I'm going to let this play out, and then we'll talk about it after.
3 patients with identical symptoms died this week. When I told Deimos, he didn't even flinch. He seemed oddly unsurprised, as if it was his plan. He told me he looked forward to the autopsy results. 4 patients this week presenting with identical symptoms: nausea, headache, and claiming to hear a piercing noise accompanied by extreme inner pain. The cause is undetermined. Autopsy results of the deceased personnel show a foreign biological agent present in the lungs. I've never seen anything like it before, but I worry this has something to do with the research lab. I've requested access to lab files so I can begin to understand what it is I'm dealing with. If I knew what they were working on, I could begin to develop a treatment program rather than letting our staff continue to suffer. I've requested a meeting with Deimos today. I plan to tell him everything I know.
Now, firstly, we learn that a lot of Deimos' men are having reactions to some biochemical weapons. Multiple patients on separate different occasions were coming back with identical symptoms, in which the doctor says is undetermined of what it could be. And Deimos actually seemed quite interested by this and was excited to see the autopsy after the outcome of these people being affected by these biochemical weapons. The autopsy report did show a foreign agent involved, and this is why the doctor sort of tried to reach out to the lab to see if she can understand what they are doing there, so she can also help them by the ones who are getting infected by it. It does seem like Deimos is developing all these biochemical weapons with no regard of how the effect has on his own soldiers. He's actually quite happy that some of them are dying to it so he can get a greater understanding of it. And that is why the doctor is requesting access to lab files so she can help the men she's there to save, because they are creating weapons which, you know, even is affecting them. This was a big issue with the White Masks and the practices devices they used, and it seems like Deimos is going to be even a bigger threat than they are. This is like the threat of the White Masks, but led by an ex-Rainbow operative, which has more training than any White Mask member ever did. And by the end of this, the way the doctor says that she's going to schedule a meeting with Deimos and tell him everything she knows, the way she says that implies that it's like, Deimos, I know what you're doing. This isn't right. So the fate of this doctor, I worry for. I have a feeling that she may be no longer with us. Now, talking about the lab, we can go to the very basement floor and go into the lab itself and hear an audio recording by one of the scientists in this lab. And she sounds, dare I say it, evil. Take a listen.
My thesis advisor put so many restrictions on my experiments, stunting my progress. But no longer. Working for Deimos will lead to the development of some incredibly advanced tech, not to mention weaponry. There's been so much discussion regarding the fear toxin and what its loss represents. But we have many other weapons in development. It was just the first of many. Battlefield implications of our latest research could shift the tides of any war. If all continues to plan, we won't just be in chemistry textbooks, we'll be in history ones. Deimos is adamant that I recreate the FNAT fear toxin, but Fenrir destroyed everything. If I don't somehow find a way to satisfy Deimos' request, I know what will happen. I must keep going. Most draw the line at human subjects, but we aren't held back by such restrictions. It took some getting used to, but I could never go back to the stale establishment world after this. Those that were lost during the FNAT testing phase were the unfortunate cost of progress. It could have been any of us, and we'd all understand the necessity of that cost. It's why we're here. We believe in something bigger.
So we learn a lot of things from this. In standard scientific research and in the scientific world, a lot of her theses were restricted by people above her. But with Deimos, there's no restriction. They're allowed to use human subjects and test these biochemical weapons they are developing, which is extremely scary stuff. She does mention the loss of the fear toxin, which is the FNAT dreadmine developed by Fenrir, and we do learn that Fenrir destroyed everything left defected to Rainbow. By the way, if you don't know, the version of the dreadmine we use in-game is an altered version which is harmless, and that is the version in which Rainbow uses. That's the version in which Fenrir uses, not the very dangerous version in which Deimos was making him develop. The Rainbow version just causes a little hallucination to decrease your sight. But yeah, she did say the loss of the dreadmine, wasn't good. However, that they have more chemical weapons in development, so the dreadmine was just one of them. And Deimos actually wants the dreadmine to be remade as well, implying that there is going to be consequences if she doesn't do it. I imagine Deimos is going to do a Deimos thing and probably take her out, so a lot of pressure. But as well as this, it sort of seemed like she was bragging as well that people were lost during the testing. Scientists were lost, these lab workers were lost, saying that it's sort of just another step in the process. No care for human life at all. So yeah, they are developing more chemical weapons. There's actually a room down here called Toxin, and as you can see, there is this unknown gadget being made here, which I think we may see in the lore very soon. And I'm sure Deimos isn't going to limit the use to these on Rainbow itself. There's going to be more victims. And she also said that the research they are doing will go down in the history books. That is how big the stuff they are developing is. So as far as I'm aware, those are the 3 separate different audio recordings you can find on the new map Lair. There may be even more. I haven't found it yet. I don't think anyone else has found any yet. So if there is more, I'll make an updated video covering that one as well. But as it currently stands, those are the 3 different ones we can find. They were all very interesting. I thought the Harry one was very sad, especially how he was talking about how he wants to make it up to his wife. And we even see in the cinematic when Deimos kills him that he sort of clutches his wedding ring as a sort of goodbye. It's really sad. But yeah, this gives us a deeper insight into how Kaze operates, how their scientists basically have no limits and they can develop some scary stuff. And even the medical workers who are treating his own soldiers don't even know the stuff they are making. His scientists may need to be gone before they get to him first. So yeah, be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about these audio notes. This is really enjoyable and there's probably so much more lore in this map we haven't even found yet. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Drop a like on this video if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. I'll catch you later. I love you all. Stay safe. Peace.